final quarter begins right now.
And welcome to the final quarter on CBS 8 Plus. I'm Jake Garriani. That is Karthik Venkatraman, and we are talking Padres baseball to get rolling here. Karthik been up and down over this last stretch. In fact, the Padres were 2-9 over the course of a stretch between the Twins and the Orioles. The sky was falling as it normally does. Then they won a couple. It was back up, and the roller coaster continues as we are 17 games, I believe, left in this regular season. It is go time, man.
Yeah, it's been a crazy stretch. Ever since they held that one-game lead over the Dodgers, then they lost to the Dodgers, and they lost a series to the Mariners, they lost a series to the Twins, and then after that, I mean, like, it's just been crazy for the Padres. And then, like, you know, they kind of got back as they played the Rockies after getting swept at home by the Orioles, and it is the Rockies. They won 2 of 3. I don't know what to make of this team right now. They lost the first game, or they beat Cincinnati in the first game coming from behind, then lost the second one to Cincinnati. I still don't know where we are with this team. They still have a pretty easy schedule, all things considered, moving down the stretch. The Mets obviously struggling. They played the White Sox. They have a 4-game series against the Rockies coming up after they finish this series with the Reds. So, you know, there is possibility for them to still finish strong. The question is, will they finish strong? Manny Machado, you would assume, is going to get out of the slump that he's in right now.
Jeez.
Michael King looked pretty good, other than the home runs that he gave up. To go 5 innings and only give up, you know, a couple runs is not bad at all. It is tough happenings in the 9th with Robert Suarez giving up those 2 runs off the home run. But, yeah, I think, you know, overall, I think the pieces are still there. Once again, it's kind of a bummer because they're still dealing with the injury of Xander Bogaerts and what's the lineup going to look like when he comes back. I think, you know, there's still some questions as we're 17 games away from the postseason. We'll see what happens. I don't know. It's really up in the air for me.
Yeah, to your point, it's funny. You know, you're 140-something games into the season, and you're still like, I'm not sure what we have in this team, which is a really weird feeling when you're this deep into a major league season. But to your point, Karthik, there have been moments where it feels like the team put it all together, but they didn't quite get there. And then there have been the down moments. But it's weird when you watch a baseball team over this amount of time and still go, I'm not sure they've hit their full potential. And it really, Karthik, hasn't felt like they have at any point had all things firing, the starting pitching, the bullpen, and the offense all working together. So the question is that just who this team is, that they won't ever have all those things working together, or have they just not found that sweet spot? But you're running out of time to find that sweet spot, man. And yes, the schedule is easy the rest of the way for the Padres, but that doesn't mean anything in Major League Baseball all the time. Sometimes, you know, people just show up. It's hard to win games. The starting pitching has been highly concerning. It was nice to see, as you mentioned, Michael King come back and, again, threw the ball pretty well. But if this team wants to go anywhere deep in October, Michael King's going to need to throw the ball well. They're going to need to get more out of you, Darvish, and some of these other guys. It just feels like we've watched them a bunch, and you're still go, I don't quite know what this team is. And I think Dodger fans and other teams that are kind of on that fringe playoff spot are feeling the same way right now, which is kind of natural because you get into this postseason, and unless you're the Milwaukee Brewers or a couple of those other teams out there, you're not feeling like overly confident, right?
Yeah, I think for me, you know, it's about momentum, right? And to an extent, your record says what you are, and how you're playing says what you are. We can't just magically think because they have all this potential and they're really good, they have a loaded roster, they're going to be good. I mean, a couple of years ago, they had Juan Soto on the team. The roster was loaded, and, you know, they missed the playoffs. They didn't even make it. So, you know, I think you are oftentimes what you've gone through. And I know the Padres have dealt with injuries, but so have other teams, the Dodgers do. And if there's anyone, you know, bungling this chance to try and win the NL West as much as the Padres kind of feel sometimes they are, it's the Dodgers as well. And, you know, the New York Mets, they're loaded, and, you know, they're on the fringe of maybe not even making the playoffs based off of what's going on and how well the Giants are playing right now. And if, you know, the Reds were able to beat the Padres today, they're going to very well be in the picture as, you know, we're getting to crunch time. So, you know, what your roster is good and all. You know, it's good to have talent on your team, but if your talent's not realized, you know, what ends up being the end result? We're going to see with this Padres team. It feels like they have been, you know, streaky all year, different times, you know, different people clicking, some others not, and then sometimes you've seen. The crazy thing is we've seen at some points of the season when both are clicking what this Padres team can be, and you're like, oh my, they're very scary. And then you see the not so good times, and then you scratch your head and you're like, how is this team doing this?
Yeah, you almost get exhausted spinning in this circle of like, yes, they're really, really good, and oh, now we're kind of really, really bad, and yes, they're really, really good. And you almost run out of ways to describe what this team is and what they're going to do, and it's almost the sit and wait kind of thing. Of course, that's not our job. We sit and talk, but you just feel like it's this continuous circle of like, there they are, and now they're back down to low, and there they are, and now they're back down to low. Let's take a look, by the way, at these standings. In the NL West, with the loss to the Reds, that middle game of that series, the Padres fell 2 games back of the Dodgers, who are currently taking on the Colorado Rockies, who the Padres will see next. We'll get into that in a moment. Giants playing really good baseball right now. I think most people left them dead in the water a couple months ago. Now all of a sudden, I know they're 7 back here, but as we move on to the NL wild card picture here, the very next graphic we can show you, look at the Giants right there, just 2 back of the Mets, as you mentioned, Karthik. Padres still in a decently comfortable spot with that 3-game lead in that second wild card. But look how many teams are piled up right there when you talk about the big picture, going all the way down to the Cardinals, who are 2 games under 500 and only 4.5 back. Karthik, I feel confident that the Padres are going to make the postseason. I really do. I'm not overly concerned about that. Now, hopefully those are not famous last words. I think they're fine when it comes to a postseason picture. The question to me is, like, is it just going to be, oh, we're in and then they're done? Or does this team really have that next level?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely think that they're probably going to make the postseason as well. Maybe I shouldn't say definitely and then probably in the same sentence, but I feel pretty good about them making it into the playoffs based off of how they're playing, what their schedule is down the stretch. I know just because you have an easy schedule doesn't mean you make it in, but I think that will probably benefit them into solidifying a playoff spot for sure. And then, if you were getting in the first round and, and they're in that second to last, in that wild card spot or, the second highest wild card spot, however you want to frame it, and they got to go on the road in their first series and they got to take on the Chicago Cubs on the road, which is kind of what it's looking like. How do they fare? Ideally, they would want a home field advantage. They've been playing amazing at Petco Park, albeit that Orioles series that we saw recently. But, they've been playing really well at Petco Park. You'd want some sort of home field advantage, preferably in the first round, and then kind of see where it takes you from there. I think the Mets are playing, worse than the Padres. And so I think that they'll probably end up with the last wild card spot, if not get bounced out of the playoffs. Wouldn't be surprised if they didn't make it. And so I think the Padres, in all reality, I think where they're probably going to end up is that 5 spot, as the playoffs take place, the second top wild card spot. And we'll see where they go from there. It's going to be tough if they have to go first and, play a team like Chicago on the road. They played some good baseball games this year, but over at Wrigley Field in a playoff environment, that'd be tough. Baseball's
a funny sport, and you never know. It's the Padres' job to get into the dance, get into the postseason, and then figure it out from there, right? That to me is all that matters in this moment. Make sure you get in, and then let's figure it out from there. I don't know. I think there's a lot of fans that are nervous once they get in about how it'll happen. But get in first. 17 games left. Here's a look at some of those final 17 games on the schedule. They wrap up that series with the Reds as we record today on 9/10. And then it's 4 against the Rockies. Really, really got to take advantage of that. Then there are those Mets. And after the Mets not pictured, the Chicago White Sox for 3. Of course, you should at least win 2 or 3, probably 3 of those. Then you got to play 3 against the Brewers, which are going to be 3 very difficult games. But those are at Petco Park for the Padres, and they'll finish the season with 3 against Arizona at Petco Park. A lot of home games to finish the year, too, which, as you mentioned already, has treated the Padres very, very well. Any final thoughts on the Padres, the brown and gold, before we move on here?
Got to get it done. Find some momentum, man. Yesterday was kind of a disappointment just watching Jackson Merrill really be the only guy that was the offense.
Which is a good sign.
It's a great sign. Great to see him coming back from the ankle injury. He's been playing well over the last couple games, but he can't be the only guy. Once again, I expect Manny Machado to kind of heat up, and other guys are going to have to too. This team's got to really figure it out. I mean, one of the beautiful things of last postseason was they were as hot as could be going to the playoffs. This year, a lot of question marks, and that can kind of be a little scary.
Speaking of plenty of question marks, I think there are a lot that surround the San Diego State football team still. The Aztecs now have 2 games under their belt this season. This last one, Karthik, did not go well up there at Washington State. Started well with this touchdown. It looked like, hey, the Aztecs might be here to hang with the Cougars, and then they got their brakes blown off. 36-13 was the final up there at Wazoo. Karthik, we were texting during the Stony Brook game, and I said, I know that game was a blowout. The Aztecs handled it fine, but I said there are still so many things that are concerning about this San Diego State football team, and I think Washington State showed a lot of what I was talking about during that Stony Brook game, that I just feel like there's no huge difference between this year's team and last year's team from like an approach to a game and how they're running their offense and their defense. To me, it just feels like this team is in the same spot, spinning their tires in the mud. Am I crazy for thinking that?
I think, they're just trying to build, and like the system is the system, right? The offense is going to look the same way every single year. The thing that I think is, the whole thing is, if you have a system in place, great, but you got to get the athletes to fill that system. Obviously, Sean Lewis is still in his second year, so he's trying to get that talent in. He got some guys in, and one of the big pieces was going to be Jaden Denegal, but kind of what I was also texting you during the Stony Brook game, he looks kind of inconsistent. He's not, it doesn't really feel like he's that full product. I know Sean Lewis has said a couple of times that, he's right there. He's got his pile of wings, flying with the Blue Angels. I don't know. He's kind of thrown out all kinds of analogies, and I'm not trying to throw shade at him, and maybe that's what they see in practice, but what I've seen in the games in the first game against Stony Brook, inconsistency, almost threw a couple of interceptions, lucky that he didn't. And then in this game against Washington State, offense really stalled out for a really long time because, it just didn't really feel like he could move the offense. And that was kind of my big concern going in from game 1 to game 2. What would that offense look like now playing away, a lot tougher competition than, an FCS opponent in Stony Brook, albeit a good FCS opponent in Stony Brook. And they went to Washington State, they went on the road. And, it kind of felt like after that first drive, where they scored a touchdown, it felt a little bit like deer in headlights and the offense could move. And then the defense, that was great against Stony Brook and looked like they were making all the tackles and they were super engaged, just was kind of getting gashed a lot. That was kind of tough to see, and you got a lot of leadership on that defense, and it didn't come through, and they ended up getting beat pretty badly. And I don't know, I guess we're going to see as the season goes on. My expectation coming into the season was 6 or 7 wins, and so I don't know. They might, get in that 6 range. I still think they'll probably, or maybe get there. I don't know. Maybe I don't feel as confident as probably. But, I don't know. There's still question marks there. I think the biggest for me is Jaden Denegal and how good he's going to be moving forward.
I kind of get caught in this moment of like, I want to give Sean Lewis the time to build a program because it's hard to do. But at this same day and age with NIL and everything, you really don't get the grace to build a program like you used to. And then in addition to that, Lewis comes in as what people say is an offensive genius, and it's going to be Aztec fast. We've heard it so many times. And I just don't feel like I've seen any progress towards that offensive Aztec fast and towards that big picture that we were kind of promised as he got here. Again, that being said, he hasn't had a ton of time. First year, you kind of got to get your feet wet, get everything under your belt. But it's just hard this day and age, Karthik, where you sit there and you go, okay, give the guy 4 years to build up his program. It just doesn't work like that anymore.
Yeah, for sure. And, as they get ready to move to a conference, a new conference, there'll be more revenue sharing, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of talent he can bring in the door moving forward, as long as, San Diego State gives them that, longer leash, which I think they will. I think they're going to give him some sort of time. But as you said, you're right. I mean, like, he can't come out, and this team can't come out and continue to lose over the seasons because that's usually how head coaches lose their job. But right now, they've built into the system. They're recruiting for guys to compete in this system, do well in this system, and we'll see if this system and this offense can really get things going, as well as that defense needs to play better moving forward.
They'll take on Cal next on the 20th of September, and hopefully they show a little more than they did against the Cougars of Washington State. Now, a team that has shown plenty all year long and has really proven everybody wrong, at least in the MLS world, would be SDFC. You run out of things to say. I feel like we get up here every week, and I'm just like, yep, they're still really good. Yep, they're still playing great soccer. And, yep, they're still taking the MLS by storm. Can you elaborate more articulately than I can?
I don't know
what else to say, man.
I don't know how many more superlatives I have for them either, but I have really enjoyed watching how clutch they've been over the past couple of weeks. Whether it was that San Jose game, whether it was the game against LAFC.
This one, yeah.
They get down and they still find a way to come back. And it's, those DPs, man, Chucky Lozano and Anders Dreyer are so fantastic. And Anders Dreyer, in the goal contributions way of things is, tops in MLS. And he's just been outstanding all year, MVP frontrunner. I think, it's just incredible what those guys have been able to do, the pressure that they've been able to do. I think, the clutch goals that Dreyer's been able to come up specifically with this year has been absolutely incredible. And, that's what I think makes this team dangerous is even if they're down in a game, you definitely cannot count them out because of the way they play, how creative they are on offense. Their passing is extraordinary. I love watching them pass the ball when they get in space because when they can get it to guys like Chucky and Anders, it can be a good night for a team. Those are not two guys you want to see in space coming towards your goalkeeper, man. And they've just been playing so great. They've got, some tough matches coming up to close the season here, but man, it's been fun to watch.
Yeah, that game up in L.A. was great. I mean, the supporters that went up was awesome to see all over that match, and then the way they played and finished, that was a sweet, sweet victory on the pitch. And then coming up, they're going to take on Minnesota, who's the #2 team in the West. It's one of the 3 teams, I think, in MLS that have clinched a playoff spot between Philly, San Diego, and Minnesota. So it's going to be another great test. They beat Minnesota earlier this season, 4-2. It's just been really thrilling to watch, and now it's kind of like, hey, let's sit back. Let's see what they can do in the postseason. The other thing, look, I'm going to get yelled at for getting way too far ahead of myself, but as you look in like the history of MLS and expansion teams, I'm curious to see over the course of 5 years how consistent they can stay, right? Because you've seen a couple MLS teams expand and burst onto the scene and then maybe fall off a little bit. I just think we've talked about how the MLS can be won and lost each and every year, and there's a lot of parity in it. I'm interested to see how much established stability that SDFC could hang on to, but that's probably getting way too far ahead of ourselves considering they're still, in the middle of their first year.
Yeah, for sure. Come on, man. They got Minnesota this week. That match
One game at a time, Jake.
That match is going to be good against Minnesota. They didn't have Anibal Godoy or Luca De La Torre due to international duties during that time, so those guys are going to be back and they're going to be in. Obviously, Minnesota, had some international duties for their guys as well, so they'll have a couple guys back. So it'll be a little different match, and we'll see how San Diego FC handles that one. Obviously, it was really high scoring. But to your other point, Jake, it is, stability and how much you go. And, I feel like oftentimes during the off seasons when these other teams really get to look at how these other teams are scheming, what they do, and people are going to understand more about San Diego FC style of play, what they do, how they get guys in space, maybe some of their weaknesses, which we've seen at times on defense this time, forcing turnovers and, opposing teams putting it in the back of the net as they're able to kind of clunk up because of the way that San Diego FC plays in their back line. Is that something they can sustain, or will there be weaknesses found within Mikey Varas's, right to dream play and, this club's right to dream, philosophy? So these are things we're going to see in the future. Obviously players come and go as well too, but great start for San Diego FC, and LAFC was an expansion team and they're doing all right too. So we'll see what happens in the future.
It's pretty crazy. Just 5 MLS matches left for SDFC in the regular season. Obviously, the playoffs to come for them as well, as they've already clinched. But already, year 1 regular season almost finished for SDFC. They also have a friendly against Tijuana, which will be very cool. But 5 matches left. Maybe one day Anders Dreyer will have his jersey retired by SDFC. you never know. But I do know somebody that did get their jersey retired recently on the pitch. That would be the great, and I mean the great, Alex Morgan, who had her jersey retired by the San Diego Wave. What a moment this was. Karthik, you were down there. You were part of all of this scene. Walk the people through it, the emotion of it that didn't get to experience it there.
Yeah, I think you can describe Alex Morgan in one word, and that's icon. That's what she is. And, I think just if you were down there or if you saw it on TV, wherever you saw it, you can see the emotional support from all the fans in the stadium and what it meant to Alex and what it meant to the club and what it just means to people, man. She is not only an icon at the United States level, but what she did for this club, helping them, come up in 2022, their inaugural season. She comes out and she puts on a show, 15 goals in 17 games, gets the NWSL Golden Boot. How awesome was that? 2023 helps them win the NWSL Shield. She really launched this club to their immediate success, and now she's a minority owner and continues to have a stake in helping this team grow into the future. So that's just the San Diego side. Then you see everything else that she accomplished with the 2 FIFA World Cup championships, Olympic gold and bronze, how much club success she had internationally, as well as, in the NWSL with Portland as well. And then on top of that, 5th all-time in U.S. women's national team goals. She is truly a legend, and also what she's done for women's equity in sports, fighting for equal pay. She's not just a great athlete, she's a great advocate for the sport and just for sports for women in general. And you gotta love seeing that, and I think that's why she's beloved by so many people, because she's freaking awesome.
It's so perfectly said by you. I love everything you had to say, and as you were saying it, we saw that shot of her signing the autographs, and it just makes me think about what impact she has had on the youth of females growing up in our country, and the women looking to see somebody in a role like hers, in the way she treats people, and the way she is such an advocate, as you mentioned, for women's equity in sports and all of it. It's just the impact she must have had and has had on the youth females in the country is just a wonderful, wonderful thing. You said one word, icon, I say one word, GOAT, but they all mean the same. She is a legend, and here she is on her jersey retirement night.
I kind of had to just like take a moment and take a deep breath and just like enjoy it, because I feel like these moments don't, these really high moments don't come anymore as often now that I'm not, playing actively. So I get to live vicariously through the team and their success. So having this moment is really special, and having my family next to me makes it even more special. And I feel so fortunate to have so much support throughout my career to get me to where I am and to open so many doors and opportunities to make an impact. And it's just leaving the game in a better place, and that's what I really tried to do, because that's what I saw the previous generation work so hard for.
Pretty iconic, if you will, as you said, man. She's just an absolute legend, and 13 will forever hang in the rafters, the proverbial rafters of Snapdragon Stadium. And I think it means a lot to the San Diego Wave, to Alex, and of course the city of San Diego. For sure.
Yeah, no, she's great. And, one of the coolest things that I saw during her speech is the way that she addressed the young people, the young fans that were out there. And she was like, Alex Morgan growing up, all she ever wanted to do was play soccer. She never thought she could get her jersey retired. She never thought that was a thing until it was. And I thought it was really cool that, she spoke that to, these young generations to keep chasing your dreams and find what's important to you and keep going for it. I thought that was pretty neat.
It's a bummer Houston kind of ruined the party a little bit with the way they came out and played with the 3-0 victory. The Wave will take on Gotham FC on the 12th and try and get back in that win column. We will be back next week to discuss it all, as we always do, on the final quarter here on CBS 8+. And as we always do, Karthik, send them off, my friend.
I had John send them off last week because I had nothing to say, and I don't really know if I have anything else to say this week, so bye.
What did John say?
I don't honestly remember.
Have a good week. We'll see you here next time.